In the ancient lands of Gilead, a story of courage, faith, and a heavy heart unfolds. It begins with a young man named Jephthah, the son of Gilead, standing alone on a sun-drenched hill. Rejected by his own family, his path was set for him by others. "You will inherit nothing from our father," his brothers declared, their words echoing in the dusty village streets as they sent him away, leaving him to face the world with nothing but his own resolve. He fled to the land of Tob, a place far from the home that had cast him out. But in this desolate landscape, he was not alone for long. Around a crackling campfire, under a canopy of stars, he gathered a band of loyal followers. These were men who saw in him not an outcast, but a leader. They recognized his strength and his spirit, and they chose to follow him, forming a bond forged in shared hardship and mutual respect. Time passed, and the winds of fortune shifted. The nation of Israel found itself facing a grave danger. The Ammonites, a fierce and powerful enemy, threatened to overwhelm them. In their moment of desperation, the elders of Gilead, the very same men who had once stood by as Jephthah was driven away, sought him out. They found him on a sunlit path, his presence now commanding respect. "Let us," they pleaded, their voices filled with urgency. "Be our commander in this war." Jephthah looked at them, his expression thoughtful, his memory long. "You drove me from my father's house," he reminded them, his voice calm but firm. "And you come to me now, when you are in trouble." He questioned their motives, testing the sincerity of their plea. He needed to know if this was a genuine call for leadership or merely a desperate act of self-preservation. The elders, humbled, bowed before him. They understood his hesitation, but their need was great. "If you lead us against the Ammonites and the Lord gives us victory," they promised, "you will not just be our commander for this battle. You will be our head, our ruler over all the inhabitants of Gilead." It was an extraordinary offer, a full reversal of his former status as an outcast. Jephthah agreed, but not before taking his cause to a higher authority. At Mizpah, a place of gathering and covenant, he stood with his hands lifted towards the sky. As the dusk settled, casting a calm, ethereal light, he presented all his words before the Lord. He sought divine guidance and blessing before stepping into the immense responsibility of leading a nation into war. It was a moment of profound faith, placing his trust not in his own strength, but in God. Before leading his army, Jephthah sought a peaceful resolution. He sent messengers across the rolling hills, their scrolls carrying a clear and direct question to the Ammonite king. "What is the dispute between us?" his message asked. "Why have you come to attack my land?" He laid out Israel's historical claim to the territory, appealing to reason and justice, hoping to avert bloodshed. But his words fell on deaf ears. In his grand throne room, the Ammonite king read the scrolls, but his heart was hardened. He dismissed Jephthah's arguments, choosing conflict over diplomacy. The king's pride and ambition overshadowed any chance for peace, making war inevitable. The warning was ignored, and the fate of two nations was sealed. As the drums of war began to beat, something powerful happened. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. It was a divine empowerment, a wave of courage and strength that settled over him. A subtle glow seemed to surround him, the wind catching his cloak as if propelled by an unseen force. He was no longer just a skilled warrior. He was an instrument of a divine will, filled with the certainty and fortitude needed to lead his people. On the eve of the battle, under the flickering firelight of the camp, Jephthah made a solemn vow to God. A moment of intense devotion and perhaps desperation, he prayed. "If you give the Ammonites into my hands," he declared, "whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph will be the Lord's, and I will offer it up." His vow, made in the heat of the moment, would hang over the victory to come. With his spirit emboldened, Jephthah led the Israelite army. They've marched across the hills, their banners waving in the wind, a unified force moving with purpose and conviction. The battle was fierce, but guided by Jephthah's leadership and divine favor. They achieved a decisive victory over the Ammonites. The enemy was subdued, and the land was secured for Israel. As the sun rose over the peaceful villages, the sounds of celebration filled the air. Soldiers raised their banners high, their faces beaming with relief and pride. The war was over. The threat was gone. Jephthah, the victorious commander, turned his horse toward home. His heart filled with the joy of his triumph and the anticipation of returning to his family. As he approached his house, the door swung open. His daughter, his only child, came dancing out to greet him, her timbrels ringing with joy, her face alight with happiness for her father's safe return. She was the first to meet him, a vision of pure, celebratory love. In that instant, the world stopped. Jephthah's triumphant smile vanished, replaced by a look of anguish. He saw his daughter, his beloved child, and the weight of his vow crashed down upon him. He tore his clothes, a sign of deep despair. The joy of victory turned to ash in his mouth. He clasped his hands, his heart breaking as he realized the terrible price of his success. His promise to God could not be broken. His daughter, seeing his distress, listened as he explained the terrible vow he had made. Her response was one of incredible grace and courage. She did not argue or despair. Instead, she gently spoke to her father, her voice a soothing balm on his wounded spirit. "Father," she said, looking out at the soft sunrise, "grant me one request. Let me go for 2 months to the mountains with my friends and mourn." And so, she did. For 2 months, she and her friends walked through the misty hills, their long garments flowing in the breeze. It was not a time of bitter grief, but of quiet reflection and deep remembrance. They shared stories, supported one another, and honored the life she had lived and the sacrifice she was willing to make, transforming her personal sorrow into a shared experience of profound contemplation. Her act of selfless courage was never forgotten. Her story became a legacy. Every year, the young women of Israel would gather, not in sadness, but in honor. With candles or flowers, they would commemorate the daughter of Jephthah for 4 days. They remembered her grace, her faith, and her strength in the face of an unimaginable fate, ensuring that her light would continue to shine through the generations. Her story reminds us of the complexities of faith and the enduring power of remembrance. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of history and faith.